Hi guys, welcome in. Happy Saturday to all of you. I hope you're having a great weekend. I am very, very happy that you let me be a part of your Saturday. I've got a really fun project for you guys this is an easy one, but I think this is one that you're going to be able to use in a lot of different ways. I'm going to show you how to make a wire snowflake. And of course, we're going to incorporate some really beautiful beads for this. And you can use this to hang this on your Christmas tree or on your mantle in front of a window as a rainbow maker. There's a lot of places that you can put this, but it also kind of doubles as the structure part of it can double for other things. You can make it in a smaller version for pendants. You can make it in a smaller version for earrings. You can even use this during Halloween and turn it into a spider web, which I have taught in another class. So I'm going to show you the basics of this, and we're going to put the beads on it. We're going to hang it up, but I'm hoping that you will leave this class with a new skill that you are going to use in a bunch of different ways, not just for a snowflake. All right, so I'm going to turn you around and we're going to get started. All right. So for our project, we don't need a whole lot here. Got a few things here on my mat. I've got some beads. Start with the beady goodness first. So I've got some of these wonderful beads from Michael's, of course, and these beads, you guys who have been with me previously in other classes know how I love the beads that come on the card that has like 4 strands in different sizes. That's exactly how these clear rondelles are available. You can grab them on a card, one of the hanging cards, and there are 4 different sizes, and that's great for this design because we're going to use all of those different sizes. And then you have plenty of leftover. I don't know if you saw or not, but my leftovers here I put in baggies just so that I have them in case I lose one of these in the floor as we're going, but also because I've got, you know, I have other projects and it's really just kind of a great cost-effective way to shop for beads. The other beads that we're using are some of these fantastic teardrop beads. They actually come on a hanging card as well. And they come, let's see, I think it's with 3 different colors, or it's 3 colors all together. There's like a lighter blue, a darker blue, kind of like a greenish teal blue for that lighter blue. But I have chosen the one that is, I don't know, the winteriest, I guess you would say, out of all of those. So these are the beads that we're going to be using. I'm going to set these to the side. We're going to talk about the wire. So for our snowflake, for the actual centerpiece itself, or the structure of the snowflake rather, we're going to be using some 18 gauge wire. I'm using 18 gauge German style wire for this, and I have cut 3 pieces that are 7 inches long. Now, that's going to make a large snowflake. We're making a pretty big snowflake for today. You obviously are not going to need that much if you want to make earrings or a pendant out of this. You definitely are not going to need 7 inches, but you can always start out with 7 inches, of course, and then cut this down to size. So 3 pieces of this cut to about 7 inches each. Then you're going to need some 26 gauge wire, and this is very, very tiny wire. It does come smaller, but 26 is pretty small. So we're using about 18 inches of the 26 gauge wire, and that's how we're going to kind of lash our pieces of wire, the larger pieces, together. That's basically it, you guys. You're going to need just a couple of tools for this. You're going to need your chain nose pliers or your bent chain nose pliers. I do have my nylon jaw pliers handy, and then a cutter tool, and that's pretty much it. The only other additional item, and you don't even have to use this, you can literally use whatever you want to, but I've got a piece of Supplemax to hang my snowflake when it's finished, and it's basically just monofilament. It's an invisible monofilament, right? So you don't see it, but you can use whatever you want to hang your snowflake. You can even make yourself a hook out of your leftover wire if you want to. So this was just my choice for how to hang mine up, but you can use whatever you want. So I'm going to show you the basic structure, and then we're going to get started with it. So the basic structure looks very much like a spider web. That's why I say for Halloween, you definitely can use this as instead of a snowflake, but for a spider web. So it's basically just our 3 pieces of wire, our 18 gauge wire that have been stacked on top of each other, one at a time, and then wire wrapped together. right? If you were a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout and you ever did any kind of woodworking, or you made like a playhouse, right? I don't know. I don't know if any of you ever did any of that, but we used to take bamboo and we would lash it together with rope to make these kinds of structures. That's exactly the same thing that we're doing here, but we're doing it with wire. So this may not be new to some of you. All right, so we're going to start out with our 3 pieces. We're just going to start out with 2. And I'm actually going to set one of those down. The first thing we want to do is we want to anchor our 26 gauge wire to the 18 gauge wire. Okay, so I'm just going to lay that 26 gauge wire across the surface of our 18 gauge wire, and I'm going to wire wrap about 3 times. Just leave yourself a little bit of a tail. Doesn't have to be a really long tail. In fact, you probably don't want it to be any longer than maybe about an inch, inch and a half, because we're going to trim it off, and you want the length of this for the rest of the piece. All right, so our working end of the wire needs to be coming towards the middle. In other words, where we have anchored our wire, those little wire wraps and the tail need to be towards the outside of your piece, and the middle, this long section, your working section, needs to be towards the middle of your wire. Okay, so we're not crossing anything over. All right, we're going to take the other piece of wire, right? We're starting with 2, and we want to lay this wire. You can either lay it behind or you can lay it in front of, but basically we want to create an X out of our wire, or a T, depending on how you're looking at it, right? We have to hold that together. Now here in the beginning, that's going to be a little tricky, but once you get this wire wrapped a couple of times, you're going to be able to let go. But we just want to lay our starting piece over the top of the second piece. Okay, slide your wire wraps right up, and then you're going to take that wire coming across the top of the new piece that you've brought in, and you are going to wire wrap about 3 times. Okay. And if your wire wraps are far apart, you can very gently squeeze those together with your fingernails or with your pliers, but we've now kind of attached. It's still a little wobbly, you can see, but as we wire wrap our way around, it's going to become more secure. So now I like to turn it in my hand. It just makes it a little bit easier to hold onto. We're going to take that 26 gauge wire. It's coming out this direction over the top of this piece, and we're going to take it over the top of the piece right next to it, right? And we're going to wrap about 3 times. Okay, whoa, and it will slip and slide on you. So you do kind of have to hold everything in place. Okay, now things are going to get a little bit tricky here if we don't cut off the tail of this wire where we started. So I want to kind of make sure that it comes to the back of this design. And I'm going to use my cutter tool to trim that off so that we don't get that mixed up with our working wire. Okay. All right. Now we're just going to take our working wire and we're going to go to the next wire. So we're just kind of skipping over to the next, and you can see how that wire is coming across, right? It's coming across the top of that wire. I'm always going over the top of the next piece of wire, and then you're going to wire wrap about 3 times. Okay, so now what you have is you have all 3, or I'm sorry, both, not all 3. We haven't added the third one yet, but you have all 4 sections wire wrapped, right, with your 26 gauge wire. Everything is still very loose. I can slide this back and forth this direction. I can slide it back and forth this direction. That's kind of how it's going to go until we get some more wire wraps in here, and that's okay. Don't worry about it too much, because you are going to want to be able to move this back and center it up. You don't want to accidentally have done it way out here and then not have a way to scoot it back into the center. Okay, so before we move on, right, we've wire wrapped on all 4 of the sections of these 2 pieces of wire. We're going to add our next piece of wire. So I'm going to take that next piece of wire. You can either put it over the top or you can put it on the back. I'm going to put mine on the back, so it's just behind all of the other pieces, right? And I'm just laying it right in there. And I'm going to take my wire over the top of it, just like we did with the other pieces, and I'm going to wire wrap about 4 times. Now it might be a little tricky because it's kind of, since it's on the back, it's a little harder to get in there with that, but it's basically the exact same thing, right? We're going to move over to the next wire. So we've wire wrapped on that one, which you can't really see those wire wraps, but it is wire wrapped. Okay. Kind of pinching everything together in the center just to hold everything in place. Move to the next wire and wire wrap. Now I realize everything feels very wobbly right this second, but you got to trust the process here, right? Okay, we're going to the next wire. So I'm just going to take that wire over to the next piece of the 18 gauge wire, and I'm going to wrap around it 3 times. Okay, then I'm going to turn it in my hand and go to the next one. Now this is the second part of that new piece that we just added on. Okay, so I'm going to wrap around it about 3 times. Okay, and then moving on to the next piece. Wrap around about 3 times. And I'm kind of pushing those wire wraps in, right? I'm just trying to slide them over to the center as far as I can so that they meet up with the last or the previous wire wraps. Okay, now moving on to the next. And at this point, we've pretty much wire wrapped all of the pieces together. Okay, still a little bit wobbly, but for the most part, everything's secure, and I don't have to worry that I'm squeezing this center piece anymore. I can let go and know that not everything is going to come apart. All right, now just to add a little bit more structure and security to this, we're going to wrap around all of the spokes of the wire a couple more times. So maybe 2 or 3 more passes all the way around, and that's going to really kind of give you that nice strong structure that you want. I wouldn't add beads to this until that point. Okay, so I'm just going to keep doing the exact same thing. I'm just moving from one piece of the wire to the next, kind of turning the whole thing in my hand, going to the next spoke of the wire, wrapping around 3 or 4 times, and then moving to the next. Now you can see how the wire very quickly kind of builds up this really cool spiral in the center. And that's a really great look for if you are going to make a spider web, right, around Halloween. You can fill the wire up and make it nice. And in fact, I'll show you one that we did in a different class that I taught. So you can see how this can very easily become a spider web, right? I even added little spider charms to mine, but this without any extra beads, right? It does very much look like that. But if you just use this for your center and then add on your beads, you can make this into a really beautiful snowflake. And of course, like I said at the beginning, you can make this much smaller so that you can make earrings or a pendant or a charm of some kind. Okay, so I'm just going from one piece of the wire to another, always kind of wrapping over the top, right? My wire is coming out over the top and then going over the top of the next piece. Now, once you've gone around about 2 times, you really want to kind of look, and it helps to lay it down flat. Of course, you can't see the entire thing here, but you want to be sure that you're centered up, right? If you need to kind of slide some of that wire over to center up all of this wire wrapping, now is the time to do that, because after we go around another 1 or 2 times, you're not going to be able to move those wires anymore. They're going to be so secure. So make sure that you're centered at this point before you go forward. Okay. And if they're not exact, that's okay. They can be off by just a little bit, but you want to try to keep it as centered as possible. So just moving from one piece to the other, right, over the top. And you can decide once you have created your structured core here, whether you want this to be the front or if you want this to be the front. Some people prefer one side over the other. I feel like with the snowflake, if it's hanging, it's probably going to spin around. And so I don't really care too much which one is the front, but for some people, it's really going to make a difference. They're going to prefer one side over the other, and that's fine. Some people like the spiral of the wire. Other people like just the wire wrap. So there is definitely a difference here. Okay. All right. I'm running out of my 18 gauge wire, or my 26 gauge wire rather, and that's good. All right, we're not going to have a ton of waste from this. So I'm going to wrap a couple more times, and then we are going to add our beads to this. So this is a pretty quick and easy project. I really feel like the longest part of this project is just getting the wires stationary. It can be a little tricky if you've never done it before. But once you build that up, you're good to go. Okay, so I'm going to come to the back and I'm going to trim off the excess wire here. Okay. Now I'm going to kind of straighten my wires. If you want to use your nylon jaw pliers to kind of straighten out those pieces of wire, smooth them out nice and straight. Of course, the beads are going to cover them, so that will help to straighten them out as well. Kind of go over each one, and that helps not only to straighten it out, but it hardens it just a little bit as well. Oh, made a big bend in that one. All right, so they're pretty straight for the most part. And like I said, the beads will definitely help for anything that needs to be straightened. All right, so we have our structure ready to go. Now all we need to do is just add some beads to this. And the beads, you can put these together in any kind of pattern that you want to. I'm going to do mine. I'm going to put my teardrop beads, I'm going to do those on the ends. So I'm going to start with the smallest bead, work up to the largest bead, back down to the smallest bead, and then add one of our teardrop beads. So just pick any one of these that are sticking out here, slide a bead on. So that smallest rondelle, go to the next size up and thread that one on. The next size up. Right. And then the largest. Okay, and then I'm going to taper it back down again. Now I'm using the clear beads for this, but I got to tell you, depending on what your holiday decor is, you definitely can use colors for this. You don't have to be limited just to clear beads. Nobody's telling you that you have to keep it clear in order for it to be a snowflake. You can do this in pink, you can do this in purple, you can do this in red. It really is just a super cool design that you quite literally can do in any color to match whatever your decor is, right? Though I will say clear goes with just about everything, but blue maybe not. So I have all of my beads here. I've got 7 of the rondelles, and I'm going to thread on one of the teardrops. So you can thread it on this direction or you can thread it on the other direction. Totally up to you. I kind of like it with the larger part being at the end. Now, before I do any more beads, I'm actually going to take this wire and I'm going to bend it right over the top of that bead. That's going to lock those beads in place. I know they're not going to slip off. We're going to do a spiral with this wire that's left over, but I'm going to do all of the spirals in one step. So I'm going to add all my beads first and then come back and work on the ends. So I'm just going to move to the next piece of wire here. I'm going to thread on the rondelles in the same pattern. Okay, so there are all the rondelles. I'm going to add my teardrop bead And again, I'm just going to hold it and bend that wire just to hold the beads in place. Okay. So just moving on to the next. Okay, add a teardrop. Hold on to all of the beads here and then just bend to lock those in place. They're not going to fall off before we get all the rest of the beads on. It's hard to see the hole on the small ones. Oh, goodness. All right, there we go. It took me a second. Okay, the next one. I think this would look really beautiful if the rondelles were blue. I like blue for a holiday color, but it would look really awesome in a lot of different colors. I've recently been using a lot of purple in my holiday designs, which is kind of different and out of the box for me, but I do feel like blue rondelles would look amazing. Oops, I need to add the teardrop. Okay, 2 more to go. Okay, our teardrop for this one. And we have one more piece of wire left. Now for the ends of the wire, I'm going to do spirals out of my wire. You, however, don't have to do the spirals. You can make simple loops at the end if you want to. You can make wrapped loops. You can just do a little bend in the wire and then cut it off. That'll still hold. Might not be super secure, but you definitely can get away with doing that depending on what you're going to do with this. If you're just going to hang it, I think that would be okay. But if you're going to make a piece of jewelry out of it, definitely want something a little more secure like a loop. But I feel like the spirals are really cool. And they're fun to do because you can, you learn how to do the spiral and then you can use them in so many different ways. So just another extra little technique. Okay, so I have all of my pieces of wire. They're nice and secure. Now we're going to work on each end of the wire to create our spiral. So I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers. And I realize a lot of people like to start their spiral with the round nose pliers, but I do have a reason for using my chain nose pliers for this. I like to take the very tip of the wire and I just create a little hook right at the end, right? Tiny little hook. And then I like to come in and trim off just a little bit, just a tiny bit. Okay. And that's the start of my spiral. I can't get a little hook that precise with my round nose pliers. If you can, that's awesome. But I feel like I have a lot more control over that shape in particular if I use my chain nose pliers for that. Now I'm going to just kind of wind this into a spiral. And the way that I do that is I'm going to take my pliers, I'm going to bite down on that hook that I just made, and then I'm going to kind of turn the wire, open and closing the tool, right? And as I open and close the tool, kind of pushing the wire into that shape, also kind of pushing with the pliers as well. And then once you get a good start, you can come in with your nylon jaw pliers to do the rest. Now, the reason I like to switch to the nylon jaw pliers is just because I feel like I don't mark up the surface of the wire as I'm creating my spiral, because I can be a little aggressive with my opening and closing of the jaws of the pliers over the wire. And I can be aggressive with the nylon and know that it's not going to leave plier marks on the wire. So I'm just kind of curling this in, right? I'm working my way right up to the bead at the end. And you've got a pretty little spiral, and it's going to hold all my beads in place, but it's also part of the design, right? So we're going to do that to each one of the ends. So I'm just going to move on to the next. Coming in, pliers, create that little hook. Might take a little finessing in the beginning to get it started, but once you get it started, it's much easier to kind of roll into a spiral. Okay, I'll come in with my nylon jaw pliers. You can see how I've kind of misshapen the wire. That's okay, right? That's all right, because as we roll it up into a spiral, it straightens it all back out. And you can use these spirals in all kinds of your jewelry making and crafts. It's just a fun little way to finish off your ends. All right, so there's another one. Now we're going to move on to the next. So coming in with my chain nose pliers again, just to create that little hook. And if the hook is a little long, just trim off a little bit of the wire. And start to roll it inwards. Okay, switch out. Finish that one. And we've got 3 more to go. And then the structure of our snowflake will be done. All we'll need to do is just add our Supplemax to this, your fishing line, your cotton cord, or whatever. If you want to make yourself a little hook out of wire, you can. And each one of our spirals has that hole in the middle, right? So it's not completely closed up. And that's a great place to attach your stringing or hanging material, whatever that's going to be. And switch to my nylon pliers. Spirals are just a slow process, but I think they're worth it because they look very cool. Just takes a little time. Okay. 2 more to go. Your spirals don't have to be perfect either. They don't they're probably not all going to match. They're all going to be just a little bit different. But remember, you know, snowflakes are pretty organic. I can't imagine that they are all perfect. So when it comes to making things that are found in nature, I always give myself, I give myself a little slack with that, right? Because I'm like, well, you know, those spirals are probably not perfect. Maybe they are, but it takes some of the pressure off of me. I don't have to feel like everything's got to be exactly the same. They can be cousins, right? Not twins. So this is our last one. All right, so now we've secured all of our beads with these cute spirals on all 6 ends of our wire, right? And depending on which side you want for the front, you've got a beautiful little snowflake. And this looks amazing, smaller. If you do this on a smaller scale, right, instead of doing 7 inches of wire and maybe you start out with 4 inches of wire or 3 inches of wire and some smaller beads, maybe instead of using the largest ones, maybe sticking to the 2 smallest of the rondelles and maybe switching out or leaving off the teardrop, you can make this into a pair of earrings that is much smaller. This obviously is way too big for an earring, but on a smaller scale, right? You just want to trim down your measurements and maybe use smaller beads. The same for a pendant, but at the same time, you can also go really large with this. If you wanted to make a whole window display, you know, or maybe hang these in front of a mirror on your mantle, you could do these even larger. So you could even go up in size with your wire if you wanted to use some thicker gauge wire and create some of these that are maybe a foot in diameter. You can really get big and bold with these and make a whole winter scene out of them, which is super cool, right? I love it when jewelry and crafts kind of mesh together. It's always a fun thing. You can definitely use this design interchangeably. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add my Supplemax to this so that I can hang this up. So I have a piece of Supplemax here. I'm going to take it and thread it through one of the loops on one of my spirals. And I'm just going to take my 2 ends together and tie a knot, and that's it. Then I can hang it from anything. But if you want to get creative with this, take some more of that 18 gauge wire, right? And turn it into a really cool metal hook or wire hook. And you can even add beads to the hook to take this to the next level. But that's pretty much it, right? I can hang it. I am going to trim off a little bit of the tails of the Supplemax here, but for the most part, once this is hanging, you won't notice any of that. It really does kind of disappear into the background, which is exactly what I want. So I'm going to turn you around so I can show you what this looks like. It looks a lot different hanging than it does, of course, being flat on the bead mat. So let me turn my camera around. All right, so now I can show you, get a better idea of the size here, right? So you can really see how big it is and how much you would need to make an adjustment if you were going to hang this somewhere, you know, or if you were going to turn it into jewelry, because clearly that's way too big for an earring. But definitely a smaller version of this would make awesome jewelry. In fact, it would make a really cool charm to hang even on a present, right? I'm always thinking of different ways that I can incorporate my jewelry into the holidays. If you're going to be gift giving and you want to, you know, give something really special, a really beautiful bow on the outside of your package, and then maybe tie this on would be really, really pretty. So, and then it, you know, they can keep it, they can hang it on their tree, they can put it in their window.
Hey, Sarah, we do
Yes.
have some questions regarding what length of the wire would work if you were making earrings for out of this craft.
So if I were going to make earrings out of this, I would probably cut that 7 inches of wire down to about 3 inches, maybe 4, just kind of depending, because you do have to allow for, if you're going to make the spiral at the end, you definitely have to have some extra wire there. That's going to take about an inch, inch and a half extra. So I would say 3 inches is pretty safe. Then you can add on your beads and then have enough to create your spiral. Or if you're going to do like a wrapped loop, to add your ear wire to it. You can always trim the wire down. I definitely wouldn't start with 7 inches. That's just going to be way too much wire. You're going to have way too much waste from that. But yeah.
Would you use the same wire or a different one?
That's a really good question. So I think it's going to kind of depend on if you're going to do earrings or if you're going to do a pendant. If you're going to do a pendant, I probably would stick with the 18 gauge wire. But if you're going to do earrings with this, instead of using the 18 gauge wire, I think you would be safe to go down to 20 gauge wire for that. I think that it would be, because it is smaller, you don't have to have all of that extra strength of the 18 gauge wire. So I think you could definitely get away with 20 gauge, maybe even 22 gauge, depending on what kind of beads you were going to use. That was a great question.
Awesome. Thank you.
Is that it? Do we got any other ones?
That looks like it for questions. Just a lot of praise, like loved this craft. There's so many great ideas that people are coming up with. And yeah, thank you so much.
That's awesome. Thank you all so much. I hope that you have enjoyed this one, and I hope that I have inspired you. It's definitely a 2-for-1 here, because you can make spider webs out of this for the Halloween season. So don't forget about this project next year when that time rolls around. But in the meantime, I hope that you all make tons of snowflakes. And if you do, don't forget to hashtag Make It With Michaels. That's right, Kelly, isn't it? Make It With Michaels.
That's right.
Awesome. And hashtag Beadalon as well, so we can see all of the cool things that you guys are creating. I appreciate it, you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me this Saturday. I look forward to seeing you again very soon with another fun project. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks.